Good morning, I'm Mike. On this episode of the Daily BM, Man Cave Edition, we have a very special guest, Greg Cleaver of the Bridge Builders Initiative, Building Better Connections. This is a very fascinating podcast. It was a great conversation that we had, and Brad and I hope you enjoy it. Remember to like and subscribe.
Hey, good morning, fuckers, and welcome to another day at the Daily BM. Mikey is in the house. What's going on, brother?
Hey, everybody, welcome back, and thank you for joining us today on this very special episode. Brad, we've got a special guest. Would you like to introduce him?
I don't know who he is. He just showed up in the lobby, and I just let him in. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Just random. He just walks in wherever.
Some random dude. I said, anybody wants to come in, just join the lobby now. Here's the link, and here he is. Nah, just kidding.
This sounds like a Thursday at your house. You just let random dudes come in your house.
Why are you being such a hater on the random dude showing up? You sound like a jealous girlfriend. Hey, this is the perfect guy for the show. It's a jealous girlfriend. So here we go.
There we go. Perfect.
And here we go.
So we have Greg Cleaver in the house, and he's with the Bridge Builders Initiative. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah?
Looking forward to it.
For now, right? Until you're ready at the end to go, I am ready to exit out of here.
So, and then the jury's out, yeah.
So we started a new podcast, and It's called basically the Bridge Builders Initiative, Building Better Connection. So let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about this venture and why you got into it.
Okay, well, best way to describe it is I've gone through my life really being kind of preoccupied in a lot of ways with having a good connection. Something I never really had with my parents. Mm-hmm. Right. And I ended up pursuing it in relationships with women and that sort of thing. And I mean, that has been hit and miss in my life. And it's led to a preoccupation with how do I connect? How do I communicate? How do I do this with people? Bridge Builders idea kind of came out of a song from my past that has to do with relationship of a father to son, and this father building this bridge, and then the son realizing that, Dad, you never built that bridge for me. It doesn't exist. So when I was thinking about coaching for men to help them explore how to communicate and build better connection, I immediately went to that because for me, that's where it started. How do I reach my father? How do I connect with him? And how do I build that bridge? And that song is kind of part of the intro to it. And so it's still kind of in process. The formulation of it is still a little bit in process, but that's the basis of it, right? Because when you think about connection, like the whole idea of it is kind of the metaphor of a bridge, right? You walk back and forth over water to get from point A to point B, and it connects two people. And I mean, communication is the bridge that gets things going with building good connections. So that's kind of where the whole metaphor and idea all comes together.
I love it. How many episodes have you put together so far?
So far, I put out the intro, and then yesterday I just put out the initial first episode. So, I said, great. Very, very much still starting with it, getting it going. Yeah.
So, what was the context of that initial introductory podcast? So you can let our listeners kind of know and just tell them where to find you real quick, and then we'll touch over it again on the back end.
Okay. But, so the context of the first episode is something that I think is a real big problem, particularly for men, but it's a problem in today's world, period. Listening. Like we listen to respond. Like this conversation is a perfect example, right? I say something, right. You parlay back. I say something, you parlay back. But when we don't take the moment to actually just ask some questions and listen, we're missing a whole opportunity. We're missing a whole context and understanding. So the first episode's called 2 Ears, 1 Mouth.
That's funny. I was thinking that when you were speaking. So that's
right?
perfect.
Yeah. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Like it's no coincidence we have twice as much available physically to us to be able to listen and less to talk. Like I don't think that's anatomical coincidence.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic because you can tell like so often when people are not actively listening, they're listening because they're just they hear the very first part of the sentence and then they're already formulating what they're going to say next, or how, if it's, you can see this in story context where someone starts to tell a story and then the person next to them is just jonesing. They're physically vibrating because they want to start telling their story.
Right.
And it's really interesting because I was just on the subject of it. I was doing some studying into attention deficit disorder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things that people that have ADD have a hard time doing. It's not stopping and being able to slow down and listen because they're already 10 steps ahead in their mind, and they're like, oh, this would be great story to go into this story, and that happened to me, and this is my experience, and it's so interesting to see that happen. So did you have a couple of points on like what people could do to help slow themselves down and focus on being a better active listener?
Yeah, I don't struggle with that at all.
I struggle with that. Honestly, Greg, before you answer that, I struggle. I mean, Mike could be a testament. He'll tell you that this is 100% a finger point at myself.
Yeah.
I struggle with that using the 2 ears versus my mouth. I usually use my mouth and my 2 ears last. And that's something I really would love to hear this answer because I struggle with this on the daily. And I mean, each time I think I'm improving, I take 2 steps back.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And so,
okay. Well, here's the thing. So we'll just go with your example.
Okay.
Right. What a lot of people do, their idea of listening is, thanks, Mike, for saying that. Here's my response to it. Here's how I relate to that. Mm-hmm. That's not really listening. Right. Okay. Because your initial thought that you're sending to me, maybe I understand it. I think I relate it. It's like you say, they're jonesing for the opportunity to relate to it. But that's not taking the time to go, okay, I hear what you said here. Let me ask you a couple of questions to get some clarity. I noticed that you are really vibrating about this. Like, what's going on for you emotionally? Mm-hmm. Active listening is the process of participating in the other person, which means you necessarily set your shit aside for a few minutes mentally and connect. Gottman calls it attuning to the other person. You're attuning to their thoughts. You're attuning to their physical expressions, right? I mean, what, 70 or 80% of communication between two people is nonverbal. Think about that for a second. How much shit do we miss that we're not paying attention to that's just nonverbal? So as men, and this is really bad when it comes to men, right? Because men don't like to talk about their feelings. Men don't like to parrot, as they call it, which is reflecting. In active listening terms, that's just reflecting. They don't like to do that. We struggle with this because we want to relate, we want to fix, we want to solve, we want to tell you what we think. But the best part of communication is just learning to hold space for someone, which is, okay, tell me more. I noticed this when you were saying this. What's going on for you there? Or you're really like amped up right now. Like, are you pissed off? Like, what's going on with you emotionally right now? The more you take the time to pay attention to the other person and what's going on for them, ask questions, participate in what you see right in front of you. Just participate in it. Put your own shit aside for a second. I mean, if anything, use your judgment and your intuition as a way to guide the curiosity process instead of explaining what your thoughts are. Because, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody has an asshole. Everybody has an opinion. That's easy. That's easy. The hard part is, can I be curious about what the fuck is happening for you right now?
One of the interesting things that I like to do, and it happens a lot, it just happened on a conversation a couple days ago. Every time when you start to talk to somebody, you ask them, hey, especially guys, you're like, hey, how's it going? Oh, man, it's great. I'm just so busy. Oh, yeah. And then usually the conversation goes, yeah, I'm busy. I got this going on. The person that asked the question just goes into their laundry list. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I've had people, and it just happened like 2 days ago. They're like, man, I'm just really busy. And my very next question is like, oh, yeah, what are you working on? And they're flabbergasted because they weren't prepared to carry that conversation on. It was like, I'm busy, which is another word for saying like, hey, leave me alone. I don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah,
But
it could
then
be.
the minute you ask, yeah, go
I just
ahead.
wanted to ask, before you continue, Mike, I just wanted to ask the question then. So what was, when you asked that, what was the response?
So that's what I was going to go into. So basically what happened was it was a pause, it was like a dramatic pause. Like there was like oh shit, I'm busy. And they're like, well, I've got like this going on. And then it was it went into like, oh, well, tell me a little bit more about what you got working there. And it blew into, instead of just being this surface level, like how's the weather style conversation, it became much deeper. It
Yeah.
became a much deeper conversation, because then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was like we got into the why they were struggling on this aspect of their business. And the reason they were struggling is because it was so core to saving their marriage. So they didn't want to let go of this aspect of the business because it was something that was built together. And it like opened up this entire like amazing one-on-one connection with this individual, that if I would have just immediately gone into, oh yeah, I'm busy too, I've got XYZ, and just started listing off all the things I got, would have been lost.
Yeah.
It never would have happened. It would have
So
just been a meaningless
who
translation.
opened up that conversation?
So it
was that you calling this guy, or this guy calling you?
Yeah, well, we had a schedule.
I'm already assuming it's a guy, by the way.
Yeah, it's a guy. Yeah, it was one of the guys that was in my one of the guys in my battle team. So as all of our listeners should know by now, Brad and I and Greg, actually, we're all part of this amazing organization called Order of Man, and we joined the Iron Council, which is just their inner brotherhood, where we work on bettering ourselves to be better providers, protectors, and presiding over our families. And I probably got this out of order, but I'm still learning, kind of new. But so yeah, it was one of the things where we're just trying to connect on better level, and it's somebody that I've been working with for a while. And I didn't tell him that I was going to talk about the podcast, so I'm not going to go into details. But it was just a connection, just to see how things are going, just to talk and stuff like that. And in the past, sometimes the conversations has always been very, well, how's the weather where your area is? Oh, great. How are the kids? How's the wife? Oh, great. Everything's great. Or I'm really busy. I got a lot of stuff going on at work, and it ends up not being very deep. So one of the things I've been trying to get better at and work more towards is talking less and listening more.
Good.
The opposite of what I'm doing right now on the podcast, but it's a podcast, so it's okay.
For once, I'm the quiet one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and asking engaging questions, as opposed to responding with my own stories, opinions, and anecdotes, as opposed to like, well, what made you decide to do that? As opposed to, well, I would have done it completely different. This is how I would have done it.
Yeah.
So that way I get more in depth of the person that I'm talking to, and it creates a better bond, in my opinion. So, I mean, I think that's right along the lines of kind of what your podcast is going to be about.
It's 100% on that. And that's what the first episode was really about. And I'm going to go into a lot more in future episodes about that. But I mean, it's as simple as, just an engaging question I think guys get, well, I don't know what to say and I don't know how to ask. Right. Well, just fucking pay attention to what he's saying. And like, hey, it's like you said, it's as simple as, so you say you're really busy. What's going on? Right? That's paying attention to the words, but it's asking a clarification question to go deeper beyond what that initial statement was. It's not something that we as guys tend to do. And it's probably why he went, oh, I'm busy. Because he's just probably following a familiar script that we do man to man, which is, let's keep it surface level, because they don't really want to know until you open the door.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Daily BM.
But that's the point.
You just said, until you open the door. But what about individuals who are really struggling with allowing that door to be opened? Like I have no problem with saying, I'm talking about myself. I used to be an open door, and I've lately shut my door slam. And I'm still trying to figure out why I'm shutting that door so tightly and not letting anyone back in. And so it's tough. What do you do when you have a person, like, for instance, what I'm going through, and that is not wanting to express my feelings?
Okay, so the best thing you can do with that, first off, you can open the door and you can invite someone into a conversation, if they don't want to go, you can't force them.
Correct.
Number one, right there. I can't force them. But what I can do is I can open the door, invite the conversation, and make sure that even if you say, no, I don't want to, I leave that alone and I leave you feeling like, okay, that I'm okay with you not talking about it. Because now the space between us is safe. You don't feel pressure. You might actually choose next time to open the door a little bit because you don't feel a threat. And you know, the funny thing is, in the communication process, feeling threatened is a big barrier to good communication. You know, our topic of the month, respond versus react.
Correct.
Why do we react? Because we feel threatened. And any guy that says, well, I'm not threatened, I'm fine. Bullshit, man.
Yeah, they're full of shit.
You're just not aware of how threatened you are. You're not aware of how threatened you are by your woman's feelings. You're not aware of how insecure and threatened you feel by something that somebody says. You're just not aware of it. So creating space between people in a conversation where you eliminate the threat and you keep them safe just invites the opportunity for them to want to maybe share more down the road. And I wouldn't necessarily leave it. Like if I can read on your face, hey man, I know you're not okay, but that's cool. You don't want to talk about it. Give me a call when you do, because I'll just listen.
Yeah.
That's the best you can do.
I mean, in this situation, since you did open the door, Brad, like that's the context that I've been taking, because I known for the last couple of days you haven't been okay, but you also haven't wanted to talk about it because normally you would open up and start talking. So I'm just trying to give you the space to process your feelings, and then whenever you're ready, I'm like here for you to talk. Or you know, if you don't want to talk to me, it's fine. But you know, and I'm just trying to be my normal self, so that way you're not seeing any weird changes in me. So I'm not trying to act differently around you, but it's one of those situations where you have to wait a little bit for the person to be ready to communicate. You can't force someone into communication. It's correct. You got to just be there and you got to be stoic. And you have to be the rock that they can lean against without collapsing. Because if you start getting all pushy and squirrely, then it pushes them further away because they're now reading off your energy.
Correct.
But yeah.
And that brings up another really good point too, when it comes to creating safety and space. And this is particularly important when we're talking to women now. If we can't be okay with the shitstorm of whatever is coming at us, we're not the rock.
Right.
You know, if we're walking in going, you need to calm down because we can't talk like this. We're not okay. We're communicating. We're not okay with what's going on with you. Well, how does that make a person feel safe to share anything? Well, you're obviously not okay with this because you're telling me to calm down and I'm fucking upset or I'm pissed off. In guys' terms, maybe it's just I'm pissed off. Don't tell me to calm down. I don't want to be told that. So, you know, that's part of creating safety is like being that rock. That requires, from a guy's point of view, like you have to be pretty fucking grounded to be able to do that. You have to be present with your own shit that's going on and be the master of that. Right?
One of the things that I've learned.
Sorry?
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned is you also have to ask the other person's permission if they want help, if they want advice, you know. So one of the things that like Brad and I talked about in the past was, you know, especially with our like wives and significant others, is like, hey, do you want advice or do you want someone just to listen?
Yeah.
Because it's very different, because sometimes people just need to get off their chest because they're trying to work it through and they just need to get it out of their head and out into the world, and they don't need advice, criticism, critiques like, oh, I can't believe you did that. You know, they don't need to hear that. Sometimes they do. And so it's okay to ask. And then it's okay for them to say, I don't know what I need. And then you can tread lightly and decide, well, how do you feel about it? And it's all about open-ended questions. I mean, it's funny. There was a dating book I read, and I cannot remember the name of the book, but the guy was like, if you really want to impress the lady that you're with, pretty much say nothing about yourself and just ask her a whole bunch of open-ended questions about herself. And it will be the best date experience you can have. And it literally, and then because you still maintain that mystery, like, who is this guy? What is he about? but then you also show compassion and understanding and listening skills. And, the woman in your life will eat that up, or the girl that you're dating will eat that up, because, they get bored when you sit there and just like, oh, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this, as opposed to, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? And then if you work that type of stuff into the next date, they're mind blown. They fall head over heels, because it's like, oh my God, like he knew all of a sudden that tulips are my favorite flower, white tulips. 100%. And here they are.
Yeah.
This is my favorite food, my favorite restaurant. And it's like, he's listening, and they just go nuts over that.
Guys seem to think a lot of times when it comes to dating and relationships that they got to be the man, take charge, be on top of the shit, fix the things, solve the problems, come up with the answers. Yeah, that stuff is important to getting shit done, but it's much more important to a man than it is a woman. The number one most important thing for a woman is, do you care about me and how I feel? If you can succeed at being really fucking good at that, you own her heart.
Yep.
You don't need to build her a house. She'll appreciate it when you do, but she just wants to feel safe living in that house.
Right. Yeah, they'll be happy living in a car if you provide that one thing. Like, they won't, the other stuff won't matter, until like children and stuff come into the equation, because then it changes the dynamic. But in the very beginning, like, as long as they feel safe and loved and understood, like, they'll fall into the world. Like, they'll go to hell and back with you.
Exactly.
Whereas on the converse, if you don't provide that one element, you can provide all the other stuff, the house, the cars, everything. If you don't provide that one element, then she's going to be fickle and leave you.
Yeah.
That's just the way it ends up, because someone else is going to be able to come along and provide that one element, and she's going to walk away. I mean, you can see it in pop culture, because all the movies have that common element. It's the guy, the downtrodden guy, that ends up with the girl over the guy that has everything, because all he does is he feeds that emotional side of her.
Yeah. That's exactly how he gets her in the first fucking place. Is he makes her feel so safe and not threatened, and she just goes.
Yep, she just goes.
She just goes.
Yeah. And with guys, it's a little, it's kind of a revelation, because I think, if you look back in history, men, we worked together as a tribe, and we went out and we hunted and we worked together, because if we didn't, we would die.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. If you walked out in the woods by yourself to go hunt back in, prehistoric times, you would die, because you didn't have the team to support you and finish the hunt. We lost that somewhere in the modern age. Now it's like every guy has to be on his own. Like, we all feel like we have to be on an island, and we can't share who we are, what we do, what we say. So that's why I think your podcast is going to be such a great hit, because it's touching that core to bring us back to that foundational thing that made us great as men and made us feel connected. That's my thought. Yeah.
Well, I think we've succeeded in this society. Feminism has succeeded in eroding the concept of masculinity so much now that nobody knows what the fuck it is. Right. And part of that is tribes, and all this stuff we're talking about communicating with women. It's just as important to men. Secret dudes. It's just as important to men. Oh, here's the problem
100%.
though. We don't know how to fucking articulate it. We don't know how to recognize it, and we don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
That's the point of what I want to do. Is I've learned a couple of things, and I've realized, and I realized this in my fire team when I'm talking to my guys, like, they want to be heard and supported, and the depth to which that conversation goes and the ways that I, minister to them and help them is greatly dependent upon how I show up and how I lead the conversation and how I open the doors. Very, very, very important. And we've missed that. I look around, and I'm doing like voice of client research right now for my business to develop my programs and stuff like that. And what I realize is there's a whole lot of guys that don't even realize what the hell they're doing in practical everyday conversations. They don't recognize what's happening for them. Right? And forget about emotional intelligence. Like, look at the topic of the month. Look at the things we talk about. As soon as we talk about like connecting with another woman's feelings or something like that, or being a little bit more in, recognizing our feminine energy, fucking guys just go ape shit over that.
You're not kidding.
You know something? I'm a Christian. I'm just going to say this flat out. Like, it's not a coincidence that the perfect complement for a man is 180-degree opposite from him. Why is that? You don't think that maybe God had it in his head that I'm going to give them something they need to learn from that has nothing to do with them, that's not like them at all? How much can we learn about our relationships and building camaraderie and bonds with other men from our relationships with our wives? Sure, the application's going to be different. It's going to be different because we're dudes. But
100%.
The principles are the same.
Right.
I can't beat you, Brad, into a conversation and say, fuck, man, you're going to talk to me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get defensive. Hair's going to stand up on the back of your head and you're going to go, fuck that. I don't feel like talking to you.
Right.
Correct.
So I have to create a safe space. Bottom line, I have to open the door and say, brother, I'm here for you.
But I feel like you already know me.
I mean,
you had me at hello, Greg. You had me at hello.
Yeah, right. Here we go.
No, but you're absolutely accurate. 100%. I mean, you really are, because it's so true. You automatically, a man's going to get in defensive mode. You can't beat him over the head and expect him to talk.
Of course.
I'd like to dig in a little more on the biblical reference because I thought it was fascinating. Because here's something that I came across the other day that was really kind of eye-opening is, God took a part of us to create women.
Right.
So we are actually missing that component that he removed.
Yes.
To create women. So in order to have the entire entity, we need to be together.
Right.
To have unison. So it's something that we're missing. And something that she's missing, we have, because we are not whole without the togetherness.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's a very in-depth thought on that structure because of the entire, taking the rib to create woman. And
let's go back to that.
We're missing something.
Let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's just riff on this.
Sure.
So what do men normally do when it comes to talking about feminine energy? They dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, why is feminism on the rise, deconstructing and devaluing masculinity? Why does man versus bear arguments exist? Because the number one problem that women have right now with men is they feel safer with the bear because the bear doesn't fucking dismiss them and shut them down and tell them you're irrational and overreacting. Here's the thing. What we can learn from women is if we're 100% whole as a human being, we have both masculine and feminine energy. So why are we so fucking afraid of our feminine energy? Oh, we're not like that. We're not crazy like a woman. Really? I would argue actually that we're more driven by our feelings. We just don't fucking understand it. That's the problem. So why not embrace it? And if you're going to apply sovereignty and control over something, apply it over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Govern your own feelings. Govern your own ability to be that rock in the emotional shitstorm and say, I'm cool with this. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And watch what happens to your relationships when you can do that. It changes everything. There's nothing, even when it comes to scaling Mount Everest, we think about guys being all about achievements, right? Scaling Mount Everest. Think about that for a second. When I'm looking at Mount Everest, I don't know about you, but I'm fucking terrified I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I have to face? Is it Mount Everest or how I feel about Mount Everest?
It's your feeling. It's your fears.
Damn straight.
And that's what life is. That's it. Literally, It's just facing your fears and working through them. I'm reading the book Born to Run, and there's a section in it where he's talking about the beast of fatigue, and it's embracing that fatigue because it's going to come, and then staying in and working through it, because that's the thing. It was like the fear of of failure, and all these fears come into your head, but they're not real. None of those are real because it's all in your head. Like, it's not in the moment. Like in the moment, like you're looking at Mount Everest and you have all this fear, I could die, but right now you're safe. Mm-hmm. And you're safe up until the moment you're not. So the fear does nothing but, it's just that primordial, mindset to try to keep us safe, but it's not that. Now we've created fear for everything. We're scared of everything when we shouldn't be. We should embrace it. And push
just
through it.
going back to the whole man versus bear thing, I just want to finish one final thought on that. And this is something that I might take a little bit of heat over this, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. I think
can't be
Ryan
any worse than the heat we take.
Dude, I think that Ryan kind of missed the whole point of that argument and debate altogether. And I know because I've talked to, like, my ex-girlfriend is a hardcore feminist. And she said, the real issue and the reason why women choose the bear is because they feel emotionally safe with the bear.
Yeah.
The bear doesn't shut them down. The bear doesn't try to tell them they're irrational. The bear doesn't try to fix it. The bear's not going to do any of those things.
Right.
So what does that tell you? Like, what are we missing here? Earlier you were talking about asking a person in a conversation, what do you need from me? Well, I'm going to go one step further here. And I'm going to say that if you're really good at attuning to someone and you're really good at exploring and just relaxing with that process and investigating and asking questions, you're going to know what they need from you. Because the more clarity you get as you're present with them, the better questions you're asking. And you don't have to come up with great questions. Like, guys, this is not rocket science. It's paying attention to what's coming at you right now and learning to observe and ask questions off of what you're seeing and what you're hearing. Right. That's all it is. We want to rush real quick to, well, let me offer you my advice. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Because even as leaders, we're charged with coming up with solutions for our teams and, at work and stuff like that. Well, the only way we're going to really be able to understand the best solution is if we really understand what our team members want to bring to the table and how we can use that. It takes much more time to listen, to pay attention, and to understand how the pieces fit together and how I can get buy-in from that person just from listening to them and utilizing what they want to bring to the table. If I can do that, I don't have to tell them I'm in charge. They're going to follow me willingly because they feel like they have something to contribute. So listen. And when you think you're done listening, listen some fucking more. Pay attention.
Right.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I'm kind of speechless.
I wanted to pause. I wanted to pause on that because that was such a poignant statement that was made, and that is like the evolution of communication. Like it starts off like it's almost like walking. Nobody started walking day one.
No.
They weren't born and put on the ground, and the next thing they're doing is running a marathon. No, it was a process. And the same thing in communication. It's like you have to slow down. And it's the mental cue. And it might even be, at first you might verbalize it. What do you need from me? Then the next step would be internalizing it. What do they need from me? Like you ask yourself the question before you start talking to them, like through their body language, through what they've said. And then it's the process. And eventually you're just in tune and they know, like you said, that you're there for them, you've got their back, you're supporting them, and you know what they need just because you've done it so many times efficiently and you've walked through the process. So that's where I think it's just a slowing down and taking a breath before you speak and really listening to what they're saying.
So let me just add to that. So what do you do? What do you say to a person who actually has those tendencies? I know you said, you just stop, but how do you guide them to actually follow through with that, being able to stop? Because I know myself included, I do have a little bit, obviously I've never been to a doctor and been diagnosed, but I really do feel like as the more I listen and the more I start listening to other conversations, I'm starting to realize I do have some ADHD qualities to myself. If not, I have it all together. So what would be your instruction to somebody like in that window?
Well, okay. So the answer to that question, I can't give you a straightforward answer, but I can give you this answer, which is a little bit more general.
Sure.
If you're not able to do it, if I'm coaching a client and they say, I just can't do that, then I take a few minutes and go, okay, so I'm telling you what needs to happen, what you need to do. Let's explore for you why you feel like you don't have the ability to do that. Because there's learned things that we have. We all have triggers in conversations where something's emotionally triggering us and we feel like we have to react to it, right? That's the respond versus react. So we've got those triggers. We've got those patterns that we're used to. We don't understand. If it's just a matter of educating how to ask questions, great. But if there's something going on for you emotionally that you're being triggered and you can't do that, part of the program that I'm working on developing right now is having men be able to understand what is going on for them in the listening process and in the communication process that is a barrier to their ability to hold space and listen. Right? And there's lots of reasons for it.
Okay.
A lot of it really has to do with our attachment patterns and our triggers and the things that are coming up for us emotionally that are compelling us to react without thinking. And teaching men to recognize what's happening with them, to pause, stay present with it, and also govern that mentally by being able to say, I'm aware right now that I'm feeling kind of defensive, but I'm just going to sit with it and ask another question. And it is a skill, but part of it is you have to bring to light what is happening for you that you feel like you don't have the ability to be able to hold space for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's what courses are for. And that's what coaching is.
Cool. Where do I sign up?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, dude,
where do I sign up? Just send me a link later.
Usually I like to define when someone says I can't. I like to ask the question, say, is it you can't or you won't?
Yeah. And honestly, it's
simple fact is 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's won't.
Yes,
correct.
Because
I don't agree with.
Very few times that it's a physical can't, like you have an inability to do it. Like a can't would be like you have Tourette's, where you just have nonverbals that you can have no physical motor control over.
Yeah.
So it's a won't. So then you have to define why. What is the won't? Why do you feel that you
won't do it,
or that you will not do it? Because you have control over this. Because the first thing is empowering the person to have control over their problem. Because that's what it is. It's empowerment. It's not something that's controlling you. You need to control it. Breath work is the number one thing that I would recommend to anyone that has a problem with moving too quickly. So train yourself anytime before you speak to take a full breath in and a full exhale before you make a statement, because it'll 100%. Slow you down. Now, it might feel weird at first, but
you need to even do that while you're in the conversation.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. That's something that I've done and I teach my own clients to do too, is recognize, breathe. Here's the thing, right? As men, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we have this desire to control. Mm-mm. It's where we apply it that becomes the issue. Are we in control of ourselves? Are we master of ourselves? Are we dominating ourselves? Or are we attempting to control other people or the world around us to feel good about ourselves? Which is it? And we're not stupid. We can figure that shit out, right? So can't versus won't. Yeah. Are you in control of yourself and will you make better choices? Because the degree to which you can breathe through, you can recognize, you can gain some mastery and autonomy of yourself, the better communicator you're going to be. And damn, guys, the better relationships we're going to have. Mm-hmm. And isn't that what we all want? Who doesn't want to come home to a wife that just can't wait to see them, who can't wait to put the kids to bed because, damn it, I need you right now. And every guy wants that. Right? So master 100%. Your shit. Grow,
and I think that's
master
where we've
your
lost.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where we've lost a lot in today's modern society because, we spend more time communicating through text, which it removes all body language and all nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Even video, because of the frame rate and the time that the way that it's produced, does not mimic being in person face to face.
It doesn't.
It's a different energy because, our bodies are so attuned. We can pick up when people's body temperature increases or not. It's not a Terminator, like you see it, but you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can feel when the person across the room from you is giving off an energy that's cooler, like they're out, they're detached. You can feel it. It's like you could be in a room and you know someone's looking at you, even though there's no one in front of you. You can feel it.
100%.
For our entire up to the last 200 years, that's what we relied on to survive and evolve, and we have that, and it's all innate with us. But through technology, we've lost most of that type of communication because you can't feel that. Like, it's only what I can see, and it's delayed, and the response isn't there. And it's so I think the stuff doing and stuff in person is so much better. Communicating, like, we'll never fight over text, never have a conversation that's like deep and meaningful over an electronic device if you can avoid it. It's better to do it in person. Phone is better than text, video is better than phone, but in person trumps all of it. So that's
100%.
where I think if you need to have a conversation, be in the room. Because if someone's bad, feeling tight and feeling condensed, and you just reach out and put your hand on them in a compassionate way, you can pull them out of that environment. But you can't do that over the phone. You can't do that over text. You can't do that over the internet.
You can't even read that
that's
shit
why,
over text.
No, and I think that's why people are feeling more alone today than ever, because we're not taking the time to do things in person. Like we live as voyeurs, watching our friends and family through social media and maybe making a comment here and there, and we feel like we're up to date with them, but we've not really connected, like, on a deeper, more spiritual
Bingo.
level.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
and I would agree with you. I 100% think that we have never in the history of mankind had the ability to connect with another individual like we do now. There's so many different mediums, but here's the thing. There's something called quality as well. And the quality of our communication has sucked. Why? Because we rely on a text message and we don't realize what we're missing, because most of us never grew up reading this shit. I mean, this kind of stuff that we're talking about on today is stuff that a lot of guys haven't learned. So they don't know what they're missing. They don't know what they don't know.
They just know they're missing something, and they can't put their finger on it, and it's driving them insane.
Yes.
And it's giving them depression, anxiety, a feeling of being alone, and they don't connect. I mean, like, for instance, with Brad and I, like, we talk every day, all the time, through video, through phone, and everything. But I can tell you, like, when we go, like, on our Sunday hikes together, that's quality bonding time because we're physically present in the same space. Yeah. It's a night and day difference as opposed to just talking every day on the phone or texting or seeing each other through video chat. It's something that men are lacking, and we're not getting like what we're used to and what we need.
100%.
You had a good point too, because the polar plunge too, Mike. I mean, it's like those moments, even though it's a short, time, it's still 15 minutes of, hey, what's up? What's going on? Yada, yada, yada. It's in person.
Being physically present in the same room.
Correct.
It's being physically present, like,
correct.
It trumps everything.
When you go back to that whole, 80% of communication is nonverbal. Like, I shouldn't quote that, but I don't know the exact specific statistic. It is high. A good percentage of communication between two people is nonverbal. Well, you don't get that over a text message. You don't even get that to the same degree that, I can read a little bit of your faces and I can get emotional expression, but there's a lot of stuff I might be missing. Whereas Google says,
Google says 70% to 93% is what Google says is nonverbal. So depending on who you're talking to, it could be all the way up to 93%.
Yeah, that's why I say that statistically speaking, it depends on who you're talking to, but it's a high percentage, and that's my point.
Right.
And you miss all of that. So we wonder why the quality of our communication has gone down. What do we mostly do? We text, right? So how much shit are we missing with a text?
Or we message back and forth.
Almost all of it.
I was going to say almost every single bit of it, because you can't read somebody's emotions, and everything's due to that person's interpretation of your text.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh yeah. We haven't even got into our own filters that filter stuff, which is why we tend to react and respond, or react and argue and, relate, because we're going through our own information processing. We have to train ourselves to check that shit.
Yep.
That's autonomy.
This could be another topic for another show, but what's really scary is the introduction of AI into communication, because now you can have AI act as you and interact as you with your people and change the way you talk and your sentence structure and the whole 9 yards. And I think that's going to make us feel even worse because now we're all going to be just clicking the button that sounds the best as opposed to actually taking the time to write
learn
something and to learn and communicate. So we're going to be sending a bunch of chat AI responses back and forth to each other because it's easy, quick, and we think we're being more efficient with our time. And then we're going to be wondering why we feel so alone and sad and depressed.
Well, that's okay. When shit blows up and people don't understand why they get there, they'll be calling me.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
And that's what I was going to lead into, because it was like, hey, before we get out of here, I just wanted to say, Greg, we would love to have you back on just for that particular topic alone and start talking down that road where technology, how that plays a role into it as well. Because Mike just touched on it here at the end, but I think that's a whole nother show when we start talking about adding in the technology factor into it. I mean, are you cool with coming back on?
Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely.
It'd be funny if you said no on the show. We'd have to edit that out.
And then I'd have to edit. No, I'd leave it in. I'd leave it in. I'd be like, good, get the hell out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Good. I didn't listen anyway. No, I'm just joking. But that all being said, Greg, before we exit out of here, tell everybody where they can hear your podcast, where they can follow you on your socials and things like that, and go ahead and start subscribing.
I don't have the actual addresses down. I've got my podcast is the Bridge Builders Initiative.
Okay.
Right. So I've got 2 there. Bridge Builders Initiative on Instagram as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's also the same thing. You'll find me same thing on TikTok as well. So that's kind of the 3 mediums that I have right now.
Okay, fantastic. I think you're on Apple Podcasts, correct? And Spotify or just Spotify?
Just Spotify right now. I'm linking it up to all of that stuff. So that'll be the next thing is to get it all linked up together.
All right. So everybody, don't forget, head over to Spotify and go ahead and subscribe. We'll also put a direct link to his Spotify account as well. And then as soon as he becomes available on all streaming platforms, we'll have a conversation, Greg, out there, and I'll tell you how to go about getting that going. And then, but yeah, we'll get you taken care of. We appreciate you, coming on the show today for sure.
Thank you for sure. And if you want to also too, if you can just put a link to, or just put my Instagram and TikTok addresses as well there. That's
Actually, I made a post this morning telling everybody to tune in.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, and we'll link in the show notes and put on the social for those days post on where they can find you and link over to your pages.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we get out of here, don't forget, head over to thedailybm.com where you can follow us on all of our socials, from TikTok to Instagram, where we like to reside most of the time. And then also don't forget to head over to masondangerbeardco.com where you get 20% off on all things cool. Greg, you have a beard, no excuse, get it. It's great products. You get 20% off too by just using the promo code DailyBM. Mikey, before we get out of here, you got anything?
Hey, everybody, have a great day. Remember, take some time to listen before you speak.
Well said. And with that, guys, we will see you guys on the flip side.
Cheers.
Have a good one.
Deuces.